You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. The obvious conversation now with Ed Orgeron out turns to who is next. And there is a growing list, and there are a lot of names that fans throw out. And I understand that. To be very clear, Scott Woodward does not care about my opinion or your opinion. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but he doesn't. He's going to conduct the search and make a decision based on the criteria he sets forth that he feels are best hiring practices that have served him really well over his career. What I know to be a fundamental fact, that you all know this as well, is that Scott Woodward, when he goes looking for a coach, he goes big game hunting. You all know the list. Chris Peterson, Jimbo Fisher, Kim Mulkey. The idea of hiring an assistant is laughable. The idea of hiring an unknown, trying to bet on the come, is just not reality. Scott Woodward aims high. When LSU lost to UCLA and I first was made aware of boosters being contacted to contribute to the buyout, I was also told two names: Lane Kiffin, Bill O'Brien. Those were the first two names I heard. I want to be very clear about something. I'm not going to give you names that are my opinion on what I would like to see. I'm going to tell you what I have heard from people within the organization, okay? At varying degrees of influence, you make up your own mind, but I'm only going to tell you things that I know are being vetted by LSU, okay? Lane Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind, arguably the best offensive mind in the country. We could say, what has he won? We could talk about him being fired at the Raiders and USC and leaving Tennessee in a lurch. All valid points. It's also valid that he's arguably the best offensive mind in the country. He's thrived in the SEC as a coordinator under Nick Saban, one of the top offenses in the country right now at Ole Miss. It makes a lot of sense to say, give him the weapons, the resources of a place like LSU, he could win at the highest level. Bill O'Brien, I would tell you the same thing. That Bill O'Brien is a guy that under the Belichick tree. He's Nick Saban's OC right now. As a college head coach at Penn State, he inherited a mess after Joe Paterno and did a brilliant job navigating that. As a coach with the Houston Texans, I think he did pretty well. As a GM of the Texans, he was a disaster. Some guys are just better college coaches. I think that's Bill O'Brien. I think he could do well here. After the Auburn game, I was given two more names: Luke Fickle and James Franklin. Fickle is certainly a hot name right now at Cincinnati. In the last week, I've come to understand that Luke Fickle might not be interested in the LSU job. He is an Ohio guy who played at Ohio State, who seems rooted in the Midwest and is likely content to wait on a Midwestern opportunity in the Big Ten, be it Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame or something like that. What's more, Cincinnati is going into the Big 12. So, legitimately, he's about to be a Power 5 coach anyway. So Fickle, while LSU may have interest, and I know at least one high-ranking official who Luke Fickle is his absolute number one top of the list, I'm not sure how realistic that is. James Franklin. Guy managed to win 9 games at Vanderbilt. I think he's a stud. Got to talk to James Franklin plenty of times at SEC Media Days when he was at Vandy. I think his personality would play great here. I think he's engaging. I think he can recruit his butt off. He's a smart offensive mind. He has a condo at 30A. Actually spent quarantine, I was told, at his condo in 30A. You ain't far from 30A if you live in Baton Rouge. So there's a lot of reason to believe that Franklin would make a lot of sense. But there's going to be competition because he's making 5-5, and you better believe that Penn State is going to come to the table to try to keep their coach. And then Southern Cal is also looking for a head coach, and Franklin is said to be on their short list. Can LSU win that bidding war? I don't know. But that's where you look at Scott Woodward and say, go do what you do. Those are the four names that I had been told until last week. When middle of last week, Mel Tucker's name became front and center. If you're not familiar with Mel Tucker, he has been a college and NFL coach for a long time. He's been hired by Nick Saban 3 times. He got hired by Nick as an assistant at Michigan State. When Nick got the LSU job, he hired Mel Tucker here in 2000. And then he hired Mel Tucker as an assistant at Alabama. When Kirby got the job at Georgia, Mel Tucker went to Athens with Kirby Smart. Got his first head coaching job in 2019 at Colorado. 1 season there, and then he left Colorado for Michigan State when Mark D'Antonio abruptly left Michigan State in February of 2020, a month before COVID. So Mel Tucker took over Michigan State amid awful circumstances. He literally took the job a month before COVID. And then remember, the Big Ten decided they weren't playing football. And then they were playing football. And they started late. And they weren't going to make up games. And the Big Ten last year was a disaster. And now in year 2 at Michigan State, Mel Tucker has them 7-0. Small sample size, no doubt, but a guy that must absolutely be considered at or near the top of LSU's wish list. There is another factor that is at play here, and it's William Tate. Now, if you've listened to any of my podcasts or Whiskey and Wine over the weekend with me and T-Bob, or some of the Facebook Live or YouTube Live stuff that I've done over the weekend, you've heard me say this, and I'll reiterate it. LSU has a new university president in William Tate. Full disclosure, I have not yet been able to meet President Tate. So I do not know him personally. We have not met yet. He got the job in May, and I've still yet to meet him. But William Tate, it is very clear, has inserted himself into this entire situation. From how they were going to handle parting ways with Ed Orgeron, meaning would they pay the buyout? Would they try to fire for cause? How would they handle all of that situation? He very much inserted himself into that conversation. Who is next? He's going to have a seat at the table as well, and apparently a big say. And I will tell you right now that I do not know who ultimately will have the final word. Is it going to be Scott Woodward's hire, or is it going to be William Tate's hire? And I do not know the answer to that. I'm not sure anyone does right now. But here's what I know, because President Tate has made this known in many circles. He is the first black president at LSU, and he has a very strong desire for this to be a legacy hire, to bring the first black or minority head football coach to LSU. In my opinion, I think that is a wonderful idea. I think it would be a wonderful moment to live through societally, and something that would be a landmark moment for LSU, for the SEC, and would be a fantastic opportunity if it happens. I will also say that there is no reality in which that should be the only criteria by which a coach is picked. Because if you limit your pool of candidates intentionally, you are doing your university, your players, your athletic department a giant disservice. If throughout the process you determine that a person of color or any minority candidate is the best candidate, phenomenal. Great. Maybe you go through this process and determine that James Franklin or Mel Tucker or Dave Aranda or Kalani Sitake from BYU, a lot of people throw out Herm Edwards. Maybe you determine throughout your process that one of those men is best for the job. Wonderful. But that can't be your only criteria. So, who ultimately has the final say? 2 weeks ago, I would have told you unequivocally this was Scott Woodward's hire. It's why you brought Scott Woodward here, to do exactly this. It's why he came here, to do exactly this. Today, I sit here decidedly less convinced of that because you have a new president who, with members of the board and other people in the community, because you know how Baton Rouge works, are in his ear and are tugging at him, pushing for diversity in this hire. And I am all for diversity, and I'm all for inclusion. But that cannot be the sole criteria by which you hire a coach. It just can't be. So, what direction do they go? I don't know. Vegas odds are out right now, and I'm going to tell you, Mel Tucker and James Franklin are really low in the Vegas odds list. You want to take a flyer? That would not be a bad place to put your money, because I'm telling you, the president of the university would be pretty high on either of those two candidates. But we're going to figure out in time exactly how this all plays out. But LSU now has whatever freedom and autonomy they need to push forward and to make this hire in a quickly, timely manner, so that way they can get on to the December recruiting period and get on to 2022 and whatever is beyond. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.